And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Yeah, they have nothing else.
Whoopi Goldberg finally snapped, and the internet got front row seats to the implosion. And no, it wasn't heat stroke. It was Charlie Kirk lobbing truth bombs like he mistook The View for an open mic. Night at the intellectual smackdown cafe. 1 minute, she's basking in smug self-assurance. The next, she looks like she just locked eyes with a MAGA ghost in ATP USA varsity jacket. What exactly did Charlie say that left her blinking like her cue cards caught fire? Buckle up, because this wasn't a polite disagreement, it was a full-scale logic napalm drop. Think Real Housewives reunion meets Ben Shapiro and drag combustible, unfiltered, and flaming with brutal precision.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept The View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there, of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country, that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo...
Whoopi, queen of daytime righteousness, sits high on her talk show perch like it's Buckingham Palace, handing out sanctimony like party favors. Her patented "I'm always right" attitude could power the city grid if it were harnessed. She's built herself a soundproof echo chamber of applause lines and smug sermons, a space where criticism gets bounced like bad Wi-Fi. But that safe space got obliterated the day Charlie Kirk decided the nonsense had marinated long enough. And while Charlie might not be the usual disruptor of daytime royalty, he came in hot armed with the Mick evidence, and the kind of swagger you get from watching your own viral takedowns. He didn't sit across from Whoopi, didn't even enter the same zip code, just hit record, dropped his argument like a missile, and sipped his coffee while the internet caught fire. The match, a smug Whoopi soundbite, cheered on by The View chorus, but Charlie saw the crack, honed in, and blew it open with the precision of a surgeon wielding a flamethrower.
Welcome back. You know, in Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me, and it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry. Okay. So, the state...
Charlie didn't just clap back, he performed a methodical takedown of Whoopi's logic. With surgical finesse, no theatrics, no shouting, just clean, clinical analysis that left media watchers everywhere nodding in silent triumph. He did what viewers have been begging someone to do for years: call out the inconsistencies piece by piece, and not with generalizations, with receipts sharp enough to slice through Whoopi's argument like it was made of foam. It wasn't just one contradiction, it was an entire bookshelf of them, assembled with meticulous detail, including the leftover IKEA screws no one uses. Best part, he did it with that quiet confidence of someone who knew this clip was about to detonate the algorithm before the credits rolled. Her glossy talking point didn't just fail, it got dice-memmed and dragged across every platform in hours. TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. It was a digital blitz, with users turning into fact-checking detectives on a mission to dismantle every self-righteous soundbite she ever uttered.
Look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just...
Even viewers who hadn't watched The View since Obama's inauguration were suddenly invested, because Charlie cracked the veneer wide open. And what was behind it? A flimsy tower of moralizing with zero structural integrity. The fallout, chef's kiss. Then the questions started rolling, in the real ones, not the cozy morning show fluff. Like, wait, did she really just invent that? And they clapped. That's when the slow deflation began. Whoopi's protected space started leaking air. This wasn't a roast with lights and laughter, it was a slow, public unraveling by a guy who never even walked into the studio. The fortress of synchronized nods and kin applause began feeling brittle. You could hear it in the strained chuckles, the missed jokes, the confused glances. And Whoopi, still there, still delivering, still tilting that head like royalty on autopilot. But something was off. That fire dimmed. That presence. Replaying old hits like a covered band, hoping no one notices, the vibe had shifted from dominance to damage control.
Disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. But I said this to our team. I said working people, the muscular class, including working women, they are so in favor of Trump, and they don't want to be called stupid.
Because here's the twist, it wasn't really about Charlie's commentary. It was about the shift he proved possible. He showed that to dismantle a TV fortress, you don't need lights, applause, or a panel, you just need truth, a camera, and the guts to hit upload. No need to scream, no need for drama, just facts, delivered with the kind of calm precision that slices deeper than a scream ever could. Charlie didn't need theatrics, he spoke like a man who already read the ending. While Whoopi's world relied on applause cues and co-host approval, Charlie rolled in with cold, calculated logic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was low-key lethal, like a cat knocking a glass off the counter without ever making eye contact. And somehow, that hit harder, because something changed. Suddenly, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, every platform was on fire with one question. Did Charlie Kirk just break the view? Viewers saw the cracks, the recycled lines, the virtue signaling routine that used to slide by. And suddenly, nobody was buying the act.
Begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the...
Let's be clear, Whoopi didn't storm off or break down. She stayed in the chair. She kept talking. But the vibe, totally off. This wasn't a TV-worthy breakdown, it was the kind of slow burn implosion you only notice when applause fades into uncomfortable silence. The next hot take didn't land with cheers, it ended in a cough and a long stare toward off-camera. Help that never came. That's the real sting. When the crown slips and no one says a word, you just feel it. The room goes still. The topics suddenly feel safer. The fire is gone. Even producers seemed spooked. Segments started sounding like they'd been pre-screened by lawyers. Every punchline landed like it came from a memo titled "No more internet fires, please." And that's the genius of Charlie's move. He didn't storm the gates. He didn't even debate. He just revealed, quietly, sharply, brutally, and it worked not because of who he is, but because he finally said out loud what millions had whispered for years. Maybe the powerhouse of daytime TV was just a house of mirrors with no reflection left.
You let them in and you knew what they were. Right. So you are complicit. I want to make a quick clarification about the neo-Nazi Turning Point event. They were outside protesters. My point was more metaphorical, that you embraced them at your thing, I felt.
Well, fast forward to this morning, the host apologized before quickly cutting to commercial.
This wasn't left versus right. This wasn't some ideological cage match. It was logic versus theater, and logic finally got a signal strong enough to live stream the truth. Viewers didn't just hear it, they felt it. All those sound bites they'd been clapping for suddenly felt like slogans on a discount mug, clever until you actually think about them. But the loudest moment wasn't Charlie's takedown. It was the silence that followed. Not just from Whoopi, but from the entire machine that usually snaps to defend her like clockwork. No counterpoints, no spin cycle, just a dead freeze. What were they supposed to say? The logic hit to clean. Any response would have been like tossing kerosene onto a digital bonfire, it'd only spread faster. So they did what legacy media always does when the narrative cracks. Blink, pivot, pretend it never happened. But the internet, different beast. It doesn't forget, doesn't move on when the camera cuts. Weeks passed, topics changed. That clip, still circulating, still cited, still dragging. It became a timestamp, a digital receipt stamped at the exact second Whoopi's impervious vibe took a surgical hit. No meltdown, no scandal, just clarity so precise it didn't bleed, it echoed. And Charlie? No victory lap, no need. He dipped like a man who knew he'd already rewritten the episode without ever stepping on set. That's how takedowns work. Now, you don't shout. You just drop a clip so airtight. The internet does the shouting for you.
Something that struck me in the cease and desist letter was the sentence that specifically the View host insidiously and cavalierly stated that TPUSA let the neo into its event, metaphorically embraced them, and it went on. Insidiously and cavalierly. And I felt that perfectly summed up exactly what those women were saying, which is something so deeply toxic and also so lightly thrown out there.
And so false. I mean, these were protesters outside of the event, right? They couldn't get in. These were not neo-Nazis inside of Turning Point USA. They were protesting outside on public grounds, and Turning Point tried to...
And Whoopi, for all her polish, all that Hollywood poise, didn't just face a critic. She walked right into the one thing no celebrity PR team can outrun. A timeline that receipts everything. No yelling, no chaos, just that unmistakable sinking realization that no matter how loud you speak, the truth is louder. This wasn't a viral spat, it was a glitch in the matrix. One of those moments when someone finally says, that motivational wall art you've been quoting, yeah, it's cringe now. This wasn't just digital noise, it was a dent in the brand. Charlie Kirk, armed with Wi-Fi and the energy of a guy who over-preps for PowerPoint night, didn't throw a tantrum. He exposed the myth illusion that daytime TV, especially The View, is some holy temple of informed takes. Let's be honest, daytime panels have been phoning it in for years, coasting on slick intros, can outrage an audience prompts more obedient than a golden retriever. At a dog show, the formula, toss out a half-baked take, back it with righteous volume, and ride the applause. Facts optional. But then Charlie showed up, no lights, no cues, just a guy with bandwidth and clarity, and shattered the fourth wall like it was made of Dollar Tree acrylic.
Too much, but we're gonna have a lot of fun at the Department of Education. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Can I tell you something? Like, I've had quite a few people contact me about that particular post. Like, I'm sure I have 1/100th of what you're getting, but people are contacting me about cabinet posts. I'm like, I got nothing.
I mean, yeah, I'm actually, after this conversation, heading to Mar-a-Lago for a week, and we have a lot to sift through, and if I could be helpful, I have asked. I want to be actively involved in all things education, as you can imagine.
But the real magic, it wasn't what Charlie said, it was how. Calm, crisp, like someone reading your horoscope with footnotes. No theatrics, no edits, just cold, clinical logic, line up like a spreadsheet from hell. He didn't roll in screaming. He rolled in with citations. While the show spun into another whirlpool of dramatic back and forth, Charlie calmly sorted the noise. Here's the contradiction. Here's the actual data. Here's why this doesn't make sense. It was like watching someone unravel a tangled necklace while the other person insists it's a noose. His tone wasn't "I'm outraged." It was "I'm not mad, just disappointed." And somehow, that landed harder than any outburst could. Suddenly, Whoopi, the reigning monarch of midday commentary, didn't look powerful. She didn't even look combative. She looked exposed, like someone who'd gone a few too many episodes without a good fact check. And the best part, no one had to interrupt her. She wasn't even in the same room. Charlie dropped his breakdown like a weather alert from a whole other time zone, and the ripples still cracked the set. No showdown, no gloves. Just one guy with a hoodie and a pie chart dismantling a $1 million broadcast with surgical calm. And the next day, that chair didn't just squeak, it echoed. Not because Whoopi stumbled, but because the illusion finally did. She wasn't wrecked in real time, she got eclipsed off camera, out of frame. In a world where Google fact checks louder than any zinger ever could.
Do you think if a liberal came to speak at University of Kentucky, they'd give an open mic like I just did to a conservative and had a discussion like this?
I certainly hope they would.
No, they wouldn't. Because speech is not a left-wing value. That is why they have to deploy shock troops called Antifa to go after everywhere I go. When I go to University of California, Davis next week, there has to be 120 police officers because of the threats, the violent threats of liberals that want me dead, that want to disrupt our event.
And just like that, The View stopped being just a show. It turned into a syllabus, a case study dissected frame by frame by the same viewers. It once banked on to clap without question. Suddenly, it wasn't about applause. It was about playback. Speed, meme templates, and contradiction counts. That's the brutal genius of a digital takedown. No pyro, no props. Just one undeniable truth tossed into the stream like a stone. And suddenly, the whole echo chamber starts to quake. No meltdowns, no screaming matches, just the quiet, creeping instability of realizing the whole tower was held up by vibes and volume. And yeah, Whoopi will bounce back. Of course she will. It's TV, everything gets retakes. Nobody stays canceled, only paused. But that's not the real question. The real question is, can the audience ever clap the same way again? Once you've seen the strings, the trick doesn't land the same. Once the curtain's been yanked, the wizard looks less like a genius and more like a guy with a fog machine and a script. So the next time Whoopi raises an eyebrow and delivers one of those "did I just say something profound" monologues, just know somewhere a camera's rolling, a feed's uploading, and a guy in a hoodie is doing the math. Quiet, precise, viral. This wasn't noise, it was a system alert. And it didn't have to yell to be seismic. If you're over the fluff and still here for the receipts, go ahead, hit that like, tap subscribe, and stay tuned. Because the real showdown, it's already in the drafts.